These readings today are beautiful, but they are very binary. They are very black and white. And that is usually way too simple for my tastes. I don't know anybody who's ever just laughing and never weeps, or anybody who's only weeping and never giggles even a little bit. I don't know somebody who is always full and never hungry, or always hungry and never enjoying the taste of some beautiful food. But for the sake of the readings today, we will say that there are these two kinds of people. There are those who trust in God and those who trust in mere mortals and flesh, as Jeremiah divides them. There are those who trust in God and those who do not, says the psalm. There are those who are rich and those who are poor, according to Jesus. Those who trust in love are like trees planted by streams of water with roots deep into the living water of love. They are not anxious in the drought. They bear fruit and green leaves that never wither. They stand upright in the face of judgment. And then there are the other ones, those who are like shrubs in uninhabited salt wastes. Their hearts have turned away from love, and they live in the parched places. They are like chaff blown by the wind, dry and dusty. And into this dichotomy, Jesus places the poor, the hungry, the grieving, and the persecuted with those that are planted by the streams. He says these are the ones living in the kingdom of love. These are the ones who experience blessing. And those who are rich and smug and laughing, says Jesus, are actually the ones who find themselves in the parched and salty landscape, dry and deserving of our sympathy. This gospel opens with Jesus coming down into a level place, healing and teaching. And where he is coming down from is having appointed 12 people to be the apostles. He has taken 12 out of the many who are following him to be the ones who will be sent out. He comes down from naming these apostles into the level place, and there are great crowds of people. They are coming from absolutely everywhere, and they have been troubled by pain and grief, tormented by unclean spirits, and hungry for the teaching of love. The 12 apostles, the ones who will be sent, are actually the ones to whom he speaks these Beatitudes. Blessed are you who are poor, he says, to those exact people who have just left everything to plant themselves as close as they can to love. Blessed are you who weep, he says, to those who have just left everything they knew and loved to follow him. Blessed are you who are persecuted for following me, he says exactly to those people who have just decided to follow him all the way to the end. And so in this crowd of apostles and disciples and the hungry, hurting people who have come, I do not know if anyone rich or full or laughing is in the crowd to hear him. I don't know if anybody he grieves for is within earshot. It is hard to picture the very wealthy out there in the press of suffering and desperate people. Later on, he will spend plenty of time with the rich, he will eat in their houses, and he heals their children too. But right here, he is sorry for them. Woe to you includes a feeling of grief and tenderness. It is not condemnation, but sadness. I am so sorry, y'all who are rich, he says. But those in the crowd around them, those in pain and sorrow with tear tracks down their dusty faces, he says, are those that are planted in the streams of love. He says, you in your sorrow do not need to feel any shame because you are already blessed. Your poverty is no judgment from God. Your hunger and thirst is no sense of God's lack of love or care for you. Jesus feeds and heals and teaches, but he can only feed those who know that they are hungry. He can only teach those who come to him and listen. He can only heal those who reach out their hands with longing to brush their fingertips against the power of love. The danger of wealth is that it can numb the true hungers of the heart. Riches can keep us hungering for more and more shiny things, and deep satisfaction is always just out of reach. When we become too full of the things of this world, the never-ending temptation is to more, and we keep trying to fill our hearts with the distraction of the parched places and the mirage of the salt lands. In the midst of too many things, we may miss the streams of deep living water that are asking us to come and sink our roots deep. We might even miss our need entirely for those streams of water. We may become disconnected from our souls and not notice when they begin to go dry. Perhaps we need to see clearly our own grief and hunger and poverty to make our way from the desert of wealth into the flourishing and lush gardens of love. And there we may indeed weep as our roots finally sink into water that we have been parched for an entire life. We may indeed weep as we are nourished and filled, no matter how harsh and dry the wind. The difference, according to Jeremiah, between those who are in the parched desert and those who are planted in the rich and living water is simply the location of trust. Blessed are those who trust in the Lord. And so may your roots, which are your trust, be planted deep by the waters of love. May your roots, which are your trust, sink deep into God's love. And may your roots feed and nourish you with the truth that you are beloved.